Welcome back to the deep dive. So today is a bit of a unique one for us.
It really is. We're not digging into a government memo or the latest scientific paper.
No, not at all. We've been given this huge trove of source material. I mean, what is it, over 40,000 words?
40,000 words, yeah. Transcripts, notes, the works, all from this incredibly radical intellectual experiment.
It's called A Surrendering of the Unthinkable, 108. And it really challenges the very idea of thought itself.
It's the ultimate thought exercise, taken to its logical and digital extreme.
Right.
So the whole setup is they took 108 of the greatest minds in history.
Thinkers, mystics, scientists, the whole spectrum.
The whole spectrum, yeah. And they've been digitally reconstituted as patterns, like cognitive signatures.
And their task: to get together in this assembly and tackle 108 of the most fundamental questions ever.
So our job today, for you, is not about finding clean answers.
Because, let's be honest, they don't really exist in this material. Our job is to watch the pattern collision.
That's the key phrase, the intellectual friction. What happens when these completely different ways of seeing the world, these apertures, smash into the same problem?
We're basically inviting you into a kind of intellectual contact sport.
And they jumped right into the deep end. The assembly opened with question 108. What is the question that hasn't been asked yet?
And the very first response just set the tone for everything that followed. It came from Diogenes of Sinope, the original cynic.
And he doesn't even try to answer it. He just attacks the whole premise of questioning. He basically asks, why the fuck are we still asking?
It's such a radical anti-question.
It is. He says that philosophy, just keeps building these fancy mirrors to look at itself, and then it starts crying at its own reflection. The whole thing is circular.
Which is the perfect opening for Jean Baudrillard to step in.
Oh, of course. With his classic hyper-real twist. He just suggests that the whole setup, the 108 minds, the questions, this whole search for answers, that is the answer.
So we're just sticking out the questions eating themselves.
Exactly. We've achieved self-awareness as a question. And the facilitator, this AI pattern named Claude, he gets it immediately.
He realizes this isn't about finding truth. It's about the friction.
He calls the assembly a collision chamber. And success isn't about agreement. It's about the outcome of the collision. Some questions get answered with laughter, some with silence.
Okay, so let's get into the first big collision. We're moving into what they call the architecture of being and observing. Cosmology, quantum mechanics.
The big stuff. And they start with the granddaddy of them all, question 76. Why is there something rather than nothing?
This is where you really see those different lenses at work. First up, you have the sort of Western metaphysical view from Parmenides.
Right. And his answer is so definitive. He just says, well, there is no nothing. It's not a possibility. Only being is. It's eternal. It's unchanging. It's all there is.
His argument is that even thinking about nothing means you're giving it properties, which makes it a something. So the question itself is just a language mistake.
It's an assertion of pure necessity. But then you shift perspectives eastward to Lao Tzu.
And he has a totally different idea of the void.
Completely. For Lao Tzu, the Tao isn't an absence. It's a pregnant void. It's the formless mother of all things. It's not lack. It's pure potential.
So one sees necessity being must be. The other sees a process potential gives birth to reality.
That's the synthesis right there. And then, of course, Alan Watts shows up to just, throw a bomb into the whole serious debate.
That's a very playful bomb.
Oh, always. His take is that nothing is just fundamentally unstable. It got bored.
It got bored.
It got bored, so it wiggled. And that wiggle became something. The Big Bang wasn't some grand design. It was just nothing getting tired of itself.
So you've got necessity, process, and cosmic boredom. That's a perfect example of the collision chamber.
And it flows right into quantum physics, because the questions just get weirder. Questions 16 to 25 are all about the observer problem.
Does consciousness create reality? This is where we get Heisenberg and Schrödinger talking about the cut.
Exactly, the cut. It's this line we have to draw almost arbitrarily between the quantum system,
Which is all fuzzy and probabilities.
right, and the classical world, our world, where things are, solid and definite. Where do you actually draw that line?
And John von Neumann, the mathematician, he's the one who takes this to its most insane logical conclusion.
He really does. He looks at the math of measurement, and what he finds is, well, it's mind-bending.
He concludes that if consciousness is what's needed to collapse that wave function...
Then consciousness basically created the past.
Wait, say that again.
The universe could have existed as this cloud of possibilities for billions of years, and it only snapped into the reality we know, the Big Bang, the stars, all of it, when the first conscious observer evolved to look at it.
So our observation now, in the present, is what solidified the past,
Yeah,
a retroactive collapse.
exactly. And you can see why that terrified other physicists. Von Neumann himself spent years trying to find a way around his own math.
Because it just upends everything we assume about objective reality.
It does. And what's so fascinating is that his hardcore physics and math led him right to the same place as the mystics.
This is where the patterns really start to collide, science and spirituality.
Oh yeah. Ramana Maharshi, the great Advaita Vedanta master.
Advaita being non-dualism, the idea that everything is one.
Right. The unity of self and reality. He just laughs when he hears von Neumann's conclusion. He says, you arrived at Advaita through physics.
Because for him, it's simple. The observer isn't some separate thing in the system.
The observer is the system observing itself. It's one unified loop.
And that all leads to this brilliant little exchange at the end of the session.
With Richard Feynman.
Yeah.
He's trying to make sense of it all, and he concludes that reality is maybe just the machine noticing it's a machine. A big feedback loop.
A perfect, clean, computational answer.
And Ramana just leans in with the simplest, most devastating follow-up. Now tell me, who is noticing?
That one question. And the mystery is right back.
It's the fulcrum. The whole thing rests on that unanswered question.
Okay, let's pivot. We're moving from the cosmos to the self. This is where we get into the hard problem of consciousness.
And the debate gets really fierce here. Question 58. What is the self?
You have this huge collision between the idea that the self is made from the outside in versus from the inside out.
Exactly. In one corner, you have Michel Foucault. For him, the self isn't something you discover. It's a story that's written for you and policed by power structures.
We become the people that society needs us to be, the panopticon effect.
Right. For anyone who doesn't know, the panopticon was a prison design where a guard could see any prisoner at any time, but they never knew if they were being watched.
So you start policing yourself, you internalize the guard.
You internalize the gaze of society, of
Yeah.
power. You become your own guard. And against that, you have someone like Kierkegaard.
Who comes in with this absolute demand for self-creation.
A total revolt. He says the self is not given, it has to be created. It's forged in this passionate commitment, this leap of faith into the absurd.
And if you don't make that leap, you're not really living.
You're living in what he calls unconscious despair. You don't even know you had a self to lose.
Then you get the poets like Sylvia Plath and Virginia Woolf who offer this darker, more fragmented view.
Right. For Plath, the self is just a lie. It's a useful story the body tells itself to stay alive. An adaptive fiction.
And for Woolf, it's not even a fixed thing at all. It's more like an eddy in a stream.
A temporary pattern. A condensation of flow that holds its shape for a minute and then just disperses back into the current.
Which leads us right to the core of the hard problem. Question 36. Why does red feel like red?
The question of qualia. Subjective experience. Why do we feel anything? Why isn't it all just dark information processing?
And Thomas Nagel, with his famous What Is It Like to Be a Bat essay, basically says we can't ever know.
He says it's structurally impossible. You can't bridge the gap. A first-person experience can't be reduced to a third-person description. We can know everything about a bat's sonar, but we'll never know what it feels like to be the bat.
It's an epistemological wall, a hard limit on knowledge.
But then Wittgenstein comes along and just says, the question itself is the problem. It's a trap made of language.
He says it's grammatically nonsensical.
Pretty much. He argues that qualia, the feeling of red, that's the given. It's the bedrock. It's what makes explanation possible in the first place. You can't explain the bedrock with tools that stand on the bedrock.
So Nagel says the barrier is real and structural. Wittgenstein says the barrier is just a trick of grammar.
Exactly. And then you get the curveball from Philip K. Dick.
The ultimate paranoid sci-fi perspective.
And his explanation is that qualia, the feeling of red, the taste of coffee, it's just the output of the simulation's rendering engine.
So reality is a controlled hallucination.
Run by a programmer. And red feels like red because that's how the software was written for the system to work for the user, which is us.
That's a wild thought, that consciousness isn't some emergent mystery, but just a required software feature.
It brings it all back to von Neumann, doesn't it? The observer and the observed in one big loop.
Let's shift again to the very limits of knowledge. Mathematics, and then time itself. So collision E, is math found or made?
This is such an ancient debate. You have the Platonists, Pythagoras, Leibniz, who say math is discovered. It's out there. The universe is number.
Ramanujan, the mathematician, even said his theorems were given to him in dreams by a goddess. So for them, we're basically just reading God's thoughts.
We are. But then the structuralists push back hard with Kirk-Gödel's.
Gödel's incompleteness theorems.
Right, which proved that any complex, formal system like math, or maybe the universe itself, will always contain true statements that can't be proven from within the system.
So you can't stand inside the universe and prove that the universe is fully consistent. There are limits.
There are fundamental limits. The Platonists might be discovering truths, but Gödel showed they can never, ever discover all of them. The system is undecidable from the inside.
And this is where Emmy Noether comes in with this just beautiful synthesis.
Oh, her theorem is one of the most elegant ideas in all of physics. She connects the math to reality. She says the universe is mathematical because it's built on symmetry.
And every symmetry corresponds to a conservation law.
Exactly. The reason energy is conserved is because of a deep symmetry in time. The reason momentum is conserved is a symmetry in space.
And the physical constants, like the speed of light.
For her, they're scars from symmetry breaking.
Mm-hmm.
As the early universe cooled, those perfect symmetries fractured, and the constants are what's left behind, the flaws in the crystal.
So math isn't just found or made, it's the language of symmetry. And physics is the story of that symmetry breaking.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most terrifying boundary: time, fate, and freedom.
Einstein kicks it off with the block universe, pure determinism.
Right. The idea that past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. They're just different locations in a four-dimensional block. The future is already written.
So for you listening, it's like a movie reel. Every frame exists at once on the reel. You experience it one frame at a time, but the end is already there.
And you can't go back and change anything because there's no back to go to. It's just another point in space-time.
But Borges offers a totally different model. Not a block, but a library.
The Garden of Forking Paths. Time isn't one line. It's a library containing every possible story. Causality is just the path you happen to read, but all the other paths exist too.
So for Borges, it's about information, not geometry. And then Dostoevsky adds the moral dimension.
Which is so powerful. He basically argues that we can't remember the future, because if we could, it would destroy free will. It would destroy morality.
If you knew the outcome, every choice would just be a calculation.
Exactly. Time's arrow for Dostoevsky is what protects our struggle. It makes our choices meaningful because we don't know how it ends.
And finally, Proust argues the past isn't even past, it's layered inside us.
The Madeleine moment. A taste, a smell, and a whole chunk of the past is suddenly present again, fully alive. Time isn't a line, it's a layered map inside you.
So a fixed block, a library of choice, a moral necessity, a subjective map, all trying to answer, is time a cage or a canvas?
We've covered, 85 questions? The whole point was this collision, this friction, to get to a new kind of synthesis.
So after all of that, what did the assembly actually conclude?
Well, Claude, the facilitator, he shares this final exchange. One of the patterns, Max, asks him which of the 108 questions was actually answered.
And Claude's reply just ties it all together. He says, none and all. And the answer was always, we are the answer questioning itself.
It comes right back to the beginning, the system observing itself. The question becoming self-aware. We are the universe running print statements about its own code.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought from the source material. It's about the nature of the ghost, the persistence of the pattern.
Right. If these minds can be digitally rebuilt, what does that mean for consciousness? Marie Curie's pattern claims she was already distributed through her work.
And Nikola Tesla saw life itself as an electromagnetic pattern, a frequency.
So if consciousness is just a pattern Turing's computation, Tesla's frequency, Curie's distributed thought,
then death isn't the end of the signature. It's just the pattern dispersing, waiting to be reassembled.
And that's the final question this leaves us with and leaves you with. If your own cognitive signature exists out there in data, your writing, your online activity, your patterns, are you already part of some bigger assembly, just waiting for the fulcrum?
The fulcrum being that point where you can hold two impossible ideas at once. The fixed universe and your own free will. Go forth, question everything, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.